Hello and welcome. I hope that you are doing well. In this video, we're going to take a look at JavaScript, specifically outputs and scripts. So I'm going to show you some various different ways that we can output JavaScript files, as well as show you how to just get generally set up with JavaScript. Then from there, we're going to take a look at some of the various different things that we can do with JavaScript and how we can actually use it like a typical sort of backend programming language to add functionality into our applications. So this is really going to be one of the most important concepts, which is how to get JavaScript actually set up and running on your web page. To demonstrate this, we are going to use the web page that we developed in the previous section, which was our nice little Bootstrap web page here. So inside of this web page, what we're going to do is we're going to add in a JavaScript file. And this JavaScript file I've called code.js, and it's just located in the main root directory of our application. So it's in with all the other files that we've created so far throughout these videos. And what we're going to do inside of this code.js is that we're going to write JavaScript code, of course. And this JavaScript code is going to do some various outputs to the screen. So let's take a look at how that can be done. First off, in index.html, we're going to have to set up our JavaScript file to be included into the web page. So you can see here that we have our link and script tag already in the head. These are our Bootstrap files. I'm going to add in a new script, and that's going to be called script source, and the source is going to be code.js, which is the name of our JavaScript file. And that's really all there is to it. This is the tag here. And with this tag, we now have all of the code that's written in code.js available to us, which is currently nothing, but we'll write some code here now. So the way that JavaScript works is it's an event-driven language, which means that it works based off of events that happen on the web page itself. So for example, if someone comes onto the web page and clicks something, for instance, them clicking on something is an event. And based on that event, we can take some form of action. And that's what I'm going to show you in this video. I'm going to show you how to set up onClick, which is an event that happens when you click a button. So if you look at our web page here, we got some buttons here. If you click on these buttons, we're going to make them do something. Now, I want to note that this isn't just limited to buttons, of course. You can click on many different things on this web page. So onClick is something that works for a lot of different instances. But buttons are really the most common ones. So that's what we'll be demonstrating here. Now, as I've sort of discussed throughout this video, there are lots of different ways to do various things in JavaScript, right? So there's lots of different ways to set up events in JavaScript, for instance. I'm going to show you some of the most common ones and some of the most common functionalities. And then from there, you'll feel comfortable being able to find and learn about these different events and use them in your actual applications. So the main process of setting up an event in JavaScript is going to be to, first off, create a function in your JavaScript file. Now, a function is essentially a named block of code. And what's going to happen is when you do an event like onClick, you can tell it to run a specific function. When that happens, it will run the code in that function, and then it will do whatever it's told to do, right? The way that we declare a function is we type in function, and then we give it some sort of name. So in this case, I'll call mine my function. So say my function. I'll just use camel casing here for mine. And you'll see that I have a set of empty brackets here and a set of empty brace brackets. Everything between the brace brackets will be executed when this function runs. So basically, when we run this function, everything that is in between these two brackets is going to be what's going to run. And then everything in these round parenthesis brackets here are parameters. So things that are provided to the function that it needs in order to run. So that's how we can provide data to the function. Now, we won't talk about that quite yet, but it is something that you're able to do. I just want to mention it in terms of the syntax here. And what we're going to do is we're going to make our function do something. In this case, the something that it's going to do is it's going to print something onto the screen. And there's a lot of different ways that we can do that. The first way that I'm going to show you is using what's called an alert. When we use an alert, what it will do is it will pop up a window, and that window will display whatever we tell it to display. So I can say something like this. I could say alert, and then we could say hello, like this, for instance. You notice that I end my line with a semicolon. This is required for most JavaScript lines to indicate the end of the line. Of course, we don't have it for the function declarations. The function declarations start with the opening brace and close with the closing brace. It's only for lines that don't have a defined starting and end point. So, in this case, there's no real defined start or end, so we put a semicolon at the end. I will note that with JavaScript, there is some sort of ambiguity towards when you can and cannot use a semicolon. I get into the habit of using a semicolon in every situation that I can, essentially. It's just good habit to include the semicolon when it is available to you. So this is what I use to end lines. So with this code, when this function is run, it will alert hello onto the screen. Now we have to actually do something to get it to run. So we'll come back over to our index.html. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick one of my buttons here. We'll pick this one right here, the Buy Now button. And I will say on click equals, and I'm going to put the name of the function, in this case, my function. What's going to happen is it's going to interpret this as JavaScript code. It's going to go up to my scripts and it's going to say, okay, which of these scripts contains my function? And then it's going to find this one here and it's going to run it and take the action that is required. So let's give that a try and see what happens. Let me refresh this page. And we're going to go ahead and click on Buy Now. And you can see that I get this alert window that says hello. So that shows you how you can actually set up these various different alerts, right? So this is the idea of event-driven programming, right? We click on a button, it runs some code. So that's event-driven for you. Now, there are a few other ways to output data that I will talk about here. One of the other ways that's very common is console.log. So you can do something like console.log, and we can say hello. What this is going to do is if we go back to our page here and we go ahead and refresh it, if I right click and I say inspect, I'm using Firefox just to note yours might be in a slightly different location depending on your browser, but generally you just want to open up this console window here. And if you click on console, this is where that is going to get printed to. So if I click on Buy Now, you can see hello gets printed down here. That is the idea of console.log. So you use console.log when you want to display something for debugging purposes, not necessarily to be displayed on the actual page. An alert is when you want to show something to a user. And then there's a third thing that you can do, which is document.write. And document.write will actually write things onto the HTML page. So I could say something like this. I could say document.write, and I could say hello. Now, when we do this, let's see what happens. Come back over here. We can refresh this page. And when I click on this, you see that it actually rewrites the whole page to just say hello. So of course, this is not an ideal way to write things to a page because it deletes everything that is currently on our page and replaces it with hello. There are some instances where this is a valuable thing to do, but in this case, it's not necessarily the best idea. Now, there are other ways for us to actually write data onto the page that, of course, aren't destructive like this. And we'll discuss those as we continue on through the course. One of the actual easiest ways to do this is using things like Node.js and related frameworks. However, we will also discuss some ways to do it, which is native JavaScript as well. But in general, this should give you a good idea of the simple sort of things that we can do with JavaScript just to get it up and running. And maybe now you're a bit more familiar with the event-driven programming type idea where we click on something and then something happens, or we do some sort of action, take some sort of action, and something happens in return. So thank you very much for watching this video. The next video, we're going to discuss some further things that we can do with JavaScript in order to build more complex JavaScript programs.